Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be having yet again another look at the Warhammer Underworlds of Nightfort, the warbands. So, today we're going to be having a little look at the Sepulchral Guard. Before we begin, if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please get your skeletal hand and smash the subscribe button and destroy the bell button so that you never miss an upload. Yeah, so anyway, what is a shame, blah, blah, blah. I've already read that one about a million times. Let's have a little look. Good gosh, it loaded then. Sepulchral Guard. The death rattle of Shadespire are quite unlike the typical charnel slaves raised by minor necromancers and practitioners of fell magic. Their soul animus remains trapped within their decayed forms as a result of the curse of Nagash, and thus they return a fragmented memory of their past lives long after their flesh has rotted away. Over time, many of these unfortunates have sworn themselves to the god of death's service, praying that by petitioning Nagash for forgiveness they may be freed from the agony of their existence. Greatest amongst their faithful is the Sepulchral Warden, the former Lord Marshal of Shadespire. Such is his devotion to Nagash that this enigmatic creature has been gifted with the power to inspire frenzied devotion in his subjects, and he directs them against all who would challenge the great necromancer's will. So, I think what we'll do is we will go and we'll start with one of the plebs. Because they'll be a carbon copy of each other, so we'll get three of them out in the way in one. So one of them looks like this, a petitioner. It says they have it's called a petitioner. That's it. There's no more character about this one, basically. And the way it inspires is this fighter is returned to the battlefield. So as soon as it's killed, and then returned to the battlefield either through a gambit, a ploy, same thing, a ploy, or just an action, which we'll talk about later, which maybe we should have led with the warden, but we'll give something a bit of away. This guy moves 2, has 1 dodge characteristic and 2 wounds. He has a range of 1. He swings 2 daggers, so 1 in 5 chance. Nope. A 1 in 6. Yeah, no. 1/3 chance of hitting with each dice. And he does 1 damage, so it's really pants. To be honest, we'll flip him over, and he rolls 3 dice when he inspires, and then he moves 3, a range of 3, which is pretty slow to start off with. Moves about as fast as a dwarf. Yeah, that's pretty much it on them. There's not really to say on that. So obviously you can give them upgrades to do more damage, so that your plebs can do some decent damage if you want them to. But they're really just pants, to be honest. So I think the next one's going to be a petitioner as well. And what we'll do is we will just, we're just going to skip past all the petitioners because they're carbon copies rules-wise of each other. And then we'll move on to possibly the best one of, a lot of people would argue that the champion, though the champion retains fractured memories of countless battles, he cannot recall whether he fought for duty, honour, or coin. So he can't remember if he's a good guy, basically, or a bad guy. The champion, he has a range of 1. He swings 2 hammers, so each one has got a 50-50 chance, and he does 2 damage, which is decent. He also has cleave, so he's good against armoured foes. If you're going against dodged characters, he's going to do really so at that point, but he's one of the bigger hitters of your warband. Again, this fighter is returned to the battlefield. That's the way everyone is inspired, with the exception of the Sepulchral Warden, rather obviously. He has a movement of 2, he has 1 dodge, and he has 3 wounds, so he's going to last a little bit longer. Still not very fast, but a decent fighter, so that his main thing is his cleave, to be honest, which is kind of obvious. The White Blade then rolls 3 hammers, still has cleave, and he moves 3 instead. So they're all going to increase their move by 1, and I think increase their dice rolling by 1. So the champ is really good in that he has cleave and does 2 damage. So obviously, again, you can give him up weapon upgrades. It's not actually a bad way to go. One of my other favourites, after the end of this little section, I'll go on to the way I've decided to start using them. And here we have the Harvester, also known as Dyson, because he's basically, my friend calls him Dyson anyway. So, in life, the Harvester was a humble farmer. Now, in his life, he reaps a more sinister crop. So, as you can see on there, he's got little shackles. So, I think the fluff is that he was basically still quite a slave. He, range of 1, swings daggers, so 1 in 3 chance of hitting. Does 2 damage, which is decent. And he obviously won't tell you about his Inspire technique. Whirling Scythe targets all adjacent enemy fighters, roll for each. So this guy can do a lot of damage if you've got a lot of models coming at you. So he's not going to be doing as great if you're going against, let's say, Stormsayers, Casebreakers or something. However, he can be given an upgrade which allows him to use Cleave, which then therefore makes him slightly better than the champ. But let's have a little look at his upgrade. When he's inspired, I should say. 3 dice rather unsurprisingly, and he's going to move 3 as well. Again, targets all adjacent enemy fighters. It does say enemy fighters, doesn't it? Enemy fighters, yes, so you don't have to worry about your own guys getting hit. Because even if you did, they die. They're dead. So the Prince of Dust, arguably my least favourite. I mean, he has his functions, he definitely does. Prince of Dust. Centuries ago, the Prince of Dust commanded vast legions and decided the fate of kingdoms on a whim. Now, he is but another tortured servant of the great necromancer. Prince of Dust moves 1, 2 hammers, 1 damage. He has knockback 1, which means he's going to move things away from your thingy. So he's possibly a good guy to have next to your leader, I would argue. The Sepulchral Warden, or anyone you want to keep away from objectives, pretty much. Moves 2, 1 dodge, 3 wounds, so he can last a little while longer. When he's inspired, he does 2 damage. He swings 3 hammers. He still has knockback 1, and he moves 3. No one's going to improve on their dodge dice, I don't believe. Have a quick look later. But principally, ironically, no pun intended, this guy is, like I say, is good for playing keep away. If you want to smack him out the way, this guy's probably the guy to go to. Does decent amount of damage, so I'd probably either use him to get rid of people on objectives or to babysit your your leader. To be fair, yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll now have a little look at the Sepulchral Warden, the linchpin of the army, you might say. Let's have a look. Sepulchral Warden was once Lord Marshal of Shadespire and leads its forces still. Gifted with strange necromantic, good gosh, powers by Nagash in return for defending his city. So quite a cool model, to be fair. I like the spear and his shield. It's kind of cool. He's well dressed for a skeleton who doesn't need clothes. Anyway. So, the Bone Shiver Spear has a range of 2. He has 2 hammers, which means it's a 1 in 50-50 chance with each dice, so it's likely to do 1 damage each time. He does 2 damage. He has 1 dodge. He moves 2. Has 4 wounds. He has 2 actions though. Action. Place a friendly fighter that was taken out of action on a starting hex in your territory and remove all their wound counters. So, this is the mainstay of your army. So you're going to be using actions to bring back characters. So you need to bring back at least 2. Because obviously his Inspire technique condition is to have 2 friendly fighters that are returned to the battlefield. So in order for that to happen, you need 2 of them to die, so you need 2 actions to be used. Bare minimum, if nothing else, to move up towards the enemy. Downside to this is you've got 12 activations in your full game, so you're only going to have 10 if you're trying to inspire this guy. Another action that he has is choose 2 other friendly fighters make move actions with these fighters. This does not allow a fighter to move twice in a phase. So, basically these guys you can move your dudes. You can move 2 guys at a time. So even though they are slow and they are going to move 2 until inspired, you can actually move 2 of them at once. So in that way, you're getting twice the amount of action for your guys. So we'll have a look at him inspired. He rolls 3 hammers and he does 3 damage, same actions as before. He moves 3, still has 1 dodge, which is rather weird. If you look at the model, you'd think he should have a shield, but he still doesn't increase on his amount of dodging. 4 wounds. Let's just see how many he was on. Was he on 3 or was he on 4 before? Yeah, so he only moves 1 more and does 1 more damage. So, yes, he's a big hitter-ish. So the weight, right, anyway, so we've gone past that part. We'll have a little look at... Oh, no. Yeah. Will we read it? I think we'll read it. Play styles. What's the death rattle lack in speed and raw power, they more than make up for with overwhelming numbers and undying tenacity. A death rattle warband will almost always have numerical superiority, and you can use this to your advantage to swarm your opponent's fighters and seize multiple objective markers. Even if some of your fighters are felled in the early stages of the game, in the early stages of the game, they can still be resurrected, and upon returning to the battlefield, your skeletal troops become inspired, making them even deadlier. Some of them less so. The centre of the Death Rattle Warband is undoubtedly the Sepulchral Warden. He can bring back fallen fighters and move his thralls around the board. He even packs a devastating punch in combat. With few upgrades placed on him, he truly becomes a spectre of death and terrifying presence on the battlefield, so I disagree with that. He is kind of tough, and he can do some damage. Definitely not nothing to be sniffed at. However, not as spectre of death as they are really talking about. What's this going to say? Tips and tricks. So this is what we'll read. From the very beginning of the game, sheer weight of numbers gives Death Rattle an edge. And when placing your fighters, you can avoid committing to a strategy by deploying your petitioners around the board. Soon your opponent's deployment will reveal their game plan, and you can position your heavy hitters to counter their strategy. This does not mean that your opponent will almost always be able to take the first turn. No. This does mean that your opponent will almost always be able to take the first turn, but that is not necessarily a disadvantage. You want your opponent to charge your hordes of skeletons, and ideally cut 1 or 2 of your fighters down. When they're resurrected, these fighters will be stronger, and the enemies having charged will be unable to fight back against them. Knowing when and where to resurrect your fighters is key to victory for the Death Rattle. There's little point in bringing a warrior back if they simply get smashed to pieces again on your opponent's turn. You will give away a victory point and gain very little in return, but it's worth remembering that upgrades remain on your fighter after they've been slain, so a heavily upgraded fighter has the potential to wreak massive damage on the enemy each time they are raised. Yep, so that's the end of their little tips and tricks. So what they've covered on, I think the last bit there, is obviously you can give your fighters upgrades, and there are certain ones that you almost definitely should. So there is a good one, which I do believe one of my good friends, Morgan, mentioned, was basically the Mirror Spite, I think it is. So every time they kill a model, you they get a glory. So killing gets you a glory, but it'll also allow you to steal one of their glory. Needless to say, every time they get one, you will also get one too, which is good. Basically meaning they don't gain an advantage killing that fighter. So it makes them less likely to choose that fighter. However, my recent tactics with playing them is definitely give them upgrades, right? Give them some good upgrades. So like the Hero Slayer is a pretty good one because it does 4 damage. You could give it to the petitioners. However, the way I usually play is I usually pick a board where I am allowed to have a bit of cover. And I'll shamelessly put the Sepulchral Warden on the back line. That doesn't protect him outright, because there are enemies who can get up the board. But it does mean they are committing resources and actions to get up the board in the first place. And he can fight as well, so he's pretty decent. So what I usually do, or what I would do, is I'd put the petitioners right near the back, I'd put the champ and the harvester right near the front, and maybe the Prince of Dust, depending on what you're doing and with your tactics, probably putting him nearer the leader than not. I basically wouldn't spend many actions on the petitioners whatsoever. I'd either keep them there just for like blocking, maybe use the Sepulchral Warden's action to move 2 of them at a time, which he also has an upgrade which allows you to move 3 fighters at a time, meaning you can move your full warband within 3 actions, which is decent. And when they've inspired, they'll move 3 instead of 2. But if you're going against things with shield characteristic, the champ is literally your best guy. You can't do anything wrong. He's got 3 wounds, so he's going to take. He's not going to go down real easy, but he's not going to go down like really hard either. Which you want him to come back so he can do. He can more likely to hurt them. Giving him upgrades obviously works too. What else would I suggest? So one thing not to be underestimated is the harvester with his multiple attack range. So if you're going against smaller enemies, let's say if you're going against a Skaven or something like that, his ability to attack all of them, if there's a couple coming at you, means that you can possibly do 4 damage in 1 action, which is decent. And again, definitely not to be sniffed at. You can do, you can get upgrades to give them +1 damage on a crit or anything like that. Great strength, great speed is also a good one. There's also another one for the Sepulchral Guard, which allows you to move +2 to your move. I think it's just for the Harvester, the Champ, and maybe the Sepulchral Warden, meaning that they can move exponentially faster. Definitely things to think about. However, again, I would kind of ignore the petitioners to an extent, other than backfield objective holders and bodyguards to your Sepulchral Warden. I mean, there's definitely ways that I'm not thinking, and there's definitely ways that other people would suggest. Please put them in the comments. Don't necessarily take my word for gospel. However, the Sepulchral Warden, Sepulchral Guard are one of my least favourite warbands, I'm not going to lie to you. So, mainly because when you bring guys back, right, you are wasting an action. And the reason I suggest treating the Sepulchral Guard like an elite team, as in, you only move possibly your Sepulchral Warden, your champ, and the harvester as only using those 3 guys. You then freeing up a lot of a lot of actions, unless you're moving guys towards objectives and stuff like that. Yeah, I think I've banged on about enough. So all I was going to say at the other point was, if you've got a better way to play them, if you definitely upgrades for certain ones, if you think the petitioners are sick as, then please put it in the comments. I'd like to see combinations how to use them, short of ganging up on people who are probably not going to be thick enough to go and get ganged up on in the first place. You can definitely tell me how. Comments down below. Sorry, I've banged on a bit now. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, destroy the bell button, and you'll never miss an upload. And as ever, thank you for watching. Goodbye.